Hello, 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 and welcome back to my channel. Uh, it's nice for you guys to visit. I'm so pleased that you're here. Maligaya ko na nandito kayo. Uh, ang pag-uusapan natin o ang opinion na I'm going to be sharing with you guys is this decision of the Supreme Court on the constitutionality of the impeachment case brought as against the Vice President Sara Duterte. Okay, um, I'll put my 10 cents worth of opinion, and let's take a listen to the spokesperson and what she has to say.
That the House impeachment complaint versus VP Sara Duterte is barred by the one-year rule and that due process or fairness applies during all stages of the impeachment process.
Well, true enough. Due process applies to every stages of the process. What's due process? Ang konstitusyon, our constitution, states that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, property without due process of law. Kalimutan nyo ng lahat ang ibang parts of the Constitution except for that one one provision. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, property without due process of law. It's the only shield that each and every one of us has as against the encroachment of government. This is copied from the Magna Carta or the Charter of Liberties and even exist, during biblical times. Why do I say biblical? Nasa Genesis to, kung di nyo alam. Ako rin hindi ko alam. Nung una, hindi ko talaga alam. It's in Genesis. God being omnipresent, you know, asked Adam, what hast thou done? And the moment God intoned those hallowed words, due process came about. Huh? Isn't that something? You learned something. Okay, well, let's go back and take a listen.
I quote, "Our fundamental law is clear. The end does not justify the means." Another quote, "There is a right way to do the right things at the right time.
True.
This is what the rule of just law means. This is what fairness for due process of law means, even for impeachment."
Well, she just said, this is what just means. Well, when you talk about being just, you know, that doesn't mean encroachment. Huh? Okay, I know impeachment and constitutional rulings sounds technical. Maybe even boring to some, but this is one of those debates that could reshape the way our democracy works. This is paramount. I'm not a lawyer, huh? But I believe it's important to share an argument for why the impeachment process should still continue. Aha, you see that right. I am for it to continue. Everybody has their own truth. The Duterte has their own truth. Marcos has their own truth. The Robredos have their own truths. Everyone has their own truth. And the only way that one can express the truth, if once you ask them and they replied, that's the only time we'll know. Okay? It is true that the Constitution states that no proceeding can be filed as against an impeachable officer more than once a year. The Constitution states that no official can be impeached, huh? more than once, or can be, the Constitution states that an impeachment proceeding can only be filed as against an impeachable officer once in a given year. Okay? But here's the key: an impeachment proceeding isn't just one action, it's a process with two phases. Phase one happens in the House of Representatives. They validate the complaint. And phase two is in the Senate. They conduct the trial and decides guilt or innocence of the accused. These are two steps. One, two. Two cannot survive without number one. Number one alone cannot survive without number two. Okay? It's a proceeding. What's a proceeding? Well, it was defined as a proceeding is defined as process of something. Okay? Yon. Dalawa sila, dalawang ano yan, dalawang it's half of a whole. It's two halves of a whole. Okay, one cannot survive without the other. Okay. Now the Supreme Court has ruled this impeachment unconstitutional. But what if the complaint had already been sent to the Senate before that ruling? In that case, the Senate already has jurisdiction. It has acquired jurisdiction. In fact, di ba napanood, we saw na they even swore as judge senators. Huh? Di ba? We saw that. Now, once the Senate has acquired jurisdiction of a certain complaint, they must finish the process no matter what the court later says. If it was struck down initially during the House process, the phase one, then it dies a natural death. Di ba? There was a complaint, okay? And a complaint trampled upon the rights of due process. It was questioned as against the tribunal, and the tribunal says this is not good. This is deficient. It doesn't conform to the rules, and therefore it cannot proceed. Then it's dead. Okay, and there's no talk about. There's no. Well, you can do motion for consideration, but you know that's it for an impeachment process. But the question is, paano kung yung complaint, when the House of Representatives was reviewing it, and they said that it was good enough. It is good. And we transmit it to the Senate. That's where the problem lies. Let's finish this.
End of quote. In a unanimous decision today, July 25, 2025, the Supreme Court en banc declared the articles of impeachment against Vice President Sara Duterte unconstitutional, noting that it is barred by the one-year rule under Article 11, Section 3 paragraph 5 of the Constitution, and that it violates the right to due process enshrined in the Bill of Rights.
Okay, like I said, you know, the once the Senate acquires jurisdiction, no matter what the court says, they have to finish it. Why? Because the Constitution makes the Senate the sole judge of the impeachment cases. They don't need permission from the court to proceed. Their mandate is clear: to hear evidence and reach a verdict whether this person is innocent or whether this person is guilty of what the person is being accused of. Now, this isn't just about Sara Duterte, don't take me wrong. Okay? It's about protecting the separation of powers and ensuring impeachment can't be derailed once the Senate is already involved. Once they swore as judge senators, once they acquired jurisdiction of the question, of the complaint itself, they have, there's no other recourse but to decide. They can say na, sandali lang, pag-isipan muna natin to. Balik natin sa Kongreso, sa House of Representatives. Tingnan natin kung sigurado ba sila. No, there's no provision of that in the Constitution. There's the provision of asking whether or not, you know, it conforms to the rules. There's no question about that. The question is whether what's indicated there is true or not. No? So here's the takeaway. If the complaint is killed early in the house, that's it. That's the end. Diba? It dies a natural death. Okay? It's finished. But once it reaches the Senate, only the Senate can finish it. Nobody else can. Once the Senate acquires jurisdiction, then they must decide as against the evidence presented. That's how the balance of our democracy stays intact. You see the beauty of the law? It divides. It's a check on the separation of powers between the judiciary and Congress. That's how we thrive as a democratic country, or a republic. You know, if they ask you a question of why, what, how, when, all the questions of due process, then you must answer. It's because of this. It's because of that. It's because of this. It's because of that. You need to be given your day in court. And at this time, the court is not the justices. It's not those people in Padre Faura. The court is in the annulled halls of the Senate. The hallowed halls of the Senate. That's where the battle is. And that's where one should justify their actions. Yeah. So, thank you for tuning in. If this gave you clarity, well, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And, It doesn't cost you anything. Just click the button, subscribe, but it means a lot to us. Stay curious, stay critical, and most of all, stay engaged. Thank you very much and have a nice